Before he was breaking records and topping charts, Drake was just a kid from Toronto trying to figure it all out. You know him now as the global superstar, but do you know what his life looked like before the fame, the hits, and the millions of fans? His story isn't just about talent. It's about the grind, the setbacks, and the moments that could have gone either way. From awkward auditions to quiet struggles, it's not all glitz and glam. So how did Aubrey Graham go from playing a teen in a wheelchair on a Canadian TV show to becoming one of the biggest names in music? Let's rewind the tape and find out where it all began. Long before Drake was selling out arenas and rapping about jet-setting across the world, he was just a quiet kid living in Toronto with his mom. His full name? Aubrey Drake Graham. Born in 1986, he grew up mostly with his mother Sandi in a part of town called Forest Hill. Sounds fancy, right? But looks can be deceiving. While the neighborhood might have had some posh parts, Drake and his mom weren't exactly rolling in money. They lived in the bottom half of a house, like literally the basement. It wasn't glamorous and things were tight. His mom, a school teacher, was sick a lot, and his dad wasn't really around much. That left Drake with a lot of time to think and dream. Even as a kid, he was different. He wasn't running around being loud or trying to be the center of attention. He was more on the quiet side, soaking everything in. But that doesn't mean he had it easy. Growing up mixed race in Toronto, and Jewish too, made him feel like he didn't quite fit in anywhere. He said he got picked on at school for everything, from his background to his clothes. That kind of stuff sticks with you. It makes you either shrink or push back. Drake, he started figuring out his own way through it. School wasn't exactly his thing, but he was clever. He paid attention, not so much to textbooks, but to people. How they acted, how they spoke, how they moved when they were nervous or faking confidence. That kind of observing would come in handy later, big time. Then, when he was about 14, something unexpected happened. A mate's dad, who was kind of in the entertainment world, said Drake should try acting. At first, he probably thought it was a joke. But the idea stuck, and when the opportunity came up to audition for a Canadian teen drama called Degrassi, The Next Generation, he went for it. The funny part? He's admitted he got high before the audition and still somehow landed the part. Imagine that. Drake ended up playing Jimmy Brooks, a basketball star who ends up in a wheelchair after a school shooting. Heavy storyline, yeah, but he pulled it off, and he stayed on the show for years. It gave him a steady income and a bit of fame in Canada, but it wasn't what he really wanted deep down. Because even while he was filming episodes and learning the ropes on set, Drake was writing. Lyrics, rhymes, ideas. He wasn't just messing about, he was quietly building something, a different path, one that didn't involve scripts written by someone else. But at that point, no one really knew. To most people, he was just that kid from Degrassi, nothing more. The thing is, Drake knew. He could feel it, that pull towards music, towards something bigger, something real, and it wasn't just some fantasy in his head. He was already working on it when no one was watching. While the world still saw him as Jimmy from Degrassi, Drake was already deep into something else behind the scenes. Acting paid the bills, sure, but it wasn't enough. He didn't want to be remembered for reading lines off a script. He wanted people to hear his words, his voice. So while the lights were on him in the studio, he was spending his free time in a different kind of studio. One with beats, not cameras. Back then, his setup wasn't flashy. No big producers or shiny equipment. Just some basic gear, a mic, and that obsession with music he couldn't shake. He started writing constantly. Bars, hooks, whole verses. It wasn't about showing off. It was more like therapy. A way to say the stuff he couldn't say out loud. You can feel that in his early music. It was raw, honest, and a bit rough around the edges. But there was something real about it. In 2006, he dropped his first mixtape, Room for Improvement. Not many people noticed. He didn't have a label or a team behind him. Just ambition and a few producers who believed in him. But he didn't stop there. The next year, he came back with Comeback Season, and that one turned a few heads. One track in particular, Replacement Girl, featured Trey Songz and got aired on BET's 106 in Park. That was a big deal, especially for a Canadian rapper. Suddenly, people outside of Toronto were paying attention. Still, success didn't come overnight. There wasn't some magical moment where it all clicked. It was more like little wins piling up slowly. He was still funding everything on his own, no label money. Just whatever he made from Degrassi and his own grind. And even though the music was getting better and better, some people still didn't take him seriously. He was the actor trying to rap. That stigma stuck around for a while, but Drake wasn't trying to sound like anyone else. His music wasn't all bravado and flexing. It was personal. He'd rap about heartbreak, about self-doubt, about figuring things out. Stuff other rappers didn't really talk about back then. And people started to notice. Not just fans either, industry people. One of them was Jazz Prince, who heard Drake's music and passed it on to Lil Wayne. That move, it changed everything. But that part's still coming. Right now, Drake was still in that middle stage. Not quite famous, not quite unknown. Balancing the acting gig while sneaking off to record late at night. Writing verses in the quiet while the world was still calling him Jimmy. But he knew he was building something bigger than a TV role. He wasn't just making songs, he was building a voice. And slowly, people were starting to listen. By 2009, the double life was getting harder to keep up. Drake had one foot in the world of acting and the other planted firmly in music. But deep down, he knew something had to give. So he made a bold move. He left Degrassi. Just walked away from a steady job, regular paychecks, and the safety net of a popular show. That's not something people do lightly, but Drake wasn't chasing safe. He had something bigger in mind. That same year, he dropped a mixtape that would flip everything on its head. So Far Gone. From the production to the writing, it felt different. It wasn't just a mixtape, it was a statement. Songs like Best I Ever Had and Successful weren't just catchy, they had feeling. Vulnerability, swagger, confidence without shouting. It was smooth, but it hit hard. People started playing it non-stop, and suddenly Drake wasn't just the actor-turned-rapper anymore. He was a problem. That mixtape caught fire, blogs couldn't stop talking about it. Music forums lit up. The industry came knocking, and not just anyone, major labels. Everyone wanted a piece. But Drake didn't rush into anything. He was smart about it. He took meetings, weighed his options, and eventually linked up with Lil Wayne and Young Money Entertainment. Now, this wasn't just a cosign, this was an invitation into the big leagues. Lil Wayne wasn't just one of the biggest names in rap at the time. He was also the kind of artist who actually brought his team with him. He didn't just sign people for show, he built with them. For Drake, it was the perfect fit. He joined Wayne on tour, got in the studio with some of the best producers and writers, and kept his foot on the gas. He started making music at a new level, sonically, lyrically, and emotionally. But even with all that going on, Drake never lost his tone. The vulnerability, the storytelling, the soft-spoken honesty, it was still there. He didn't trade that for fame. By the time Thank Me Later dropped in 2010, he wasn't just rising, he was rising fast. The album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, which is wild for a debut. He had features from Alicia Keys, Jay-Z, Kanye, and of course, Lil Wayne. People he used to admire from a distance were now working with him. But here's the thing, it didn't feel like luck. It felt earned. This wasn't some overnight success story. Drake had put in the hours, made the sacrifices, and followed his gut, even when people doubted him, especially when they doubted him. But now, the world had finally caught up to what he knew all along. He had something to say, and now people everywhere were listening. So the debut album hit #1. The features were A-list and Drake had officially arrived. But showing up is one thing, sticking around is another. And the truth is, not everyone was sold. Some still saw him as the guy from Degrassi. Others thought he was too soft to last in hip-hop. Too emotional, too clean, too Canadian even. That doubt, he felt it. And instead of brushing it off, he leaned into it. Drake didn't try to become what people expected a rapper to be. He doubled down on being himself. He wasn't going to start rapping about stuff he didn't live. No fake gangster stories, no acting tough just to fit in. He talked about what he knew. Relationships that got messy, fame that felt overwhelming, friends who switched up, and what it's like to be in the middle of it all, still trying to stay grounded. And that's what made Take Care so special. When it dropped in 2011, it didn't just confirm that he was talented, it showed depth. Vulnerability wasn't a side note anymore, it was part of the sound. Tracks like Marvin's Room, Take Care, and Crew Love brought out this moody late-night energy that people connected with in a big way. He wasn't just making music you danced to, he was making stuff you felt. At the same time, he was still evolving as an artist. His flow got sharper, the production got tighter. And you could tell he wasn't just rapping anymore. He was crafting entire moods. Songs had layers. Hooks would stay stuck in your head for days. He blurred the lines between rap and R&B without ever really picking a side. That kind of range? That's what set him apart. But fame brought pressure. Every move was watched. Every song got picked apart. And behind the scenes, things weren't always smooth. There were fallouts, tension in his team, and people questioning whether he could keep topping himself. Not to mention the critics still looking for cracks in the image. Still, instead of running from all that, Drake worked. Quietly, consistently. He knew people were watching, and he used that. Not in a loud, watch me prove you wrong kind of way. More like, I'm gonna do this exactly how I want, and you're gonna feel it whether you like it or not. By the time Nothing Was the Same dropped in 2013, the doubts were fading. The numbers spoke for themselves. But more importantly, the music kept growing. Tracks like Started From the Bottom weren't just catchy, they were the truth. A simple line that summed up years of struggle, self-belief, and pushing through when nobody saw it coming. And he wasn't just telling his story anymore, he was becoming the voice of a whole generation trying to figure things out in real time. Drake wasn't chasing trends, he was setting them. And even now you could tell, he still felt like he had more to prove. By now, Drake wasn't just a rapper, he was a brand, a cultural force. The guy from the basement apartment in Toronto had turned himself into a global name. But what stood out was how he did it. No gimmicks, no pretending. Just honesty, consistency, and a sound that felt personal, even when it was blasting from stadium speakers. With every project, from Views to Scorpion to Certified Lover Boy, he kept evolving, sometimes singing more, sometimes rapping harder, but always staying true to what made him stand out in the first place. He gave space to emotion in a genre that often avoided it, and somehow made it cool to be reflective, even vulnerable. And yeah, he had the hits, the awards, the endless chart records, but that's not really what made him special. What made Drake different was that he brought people into his world. He didn't just tell you he made it, he showed you the messy, complicated, real road it took to get there. From a kid getting picked on in school to one of the most streamed artists of all time, that journey didn't happen by accident. He worked for it, he built it, and he never stopped moving. That's not just talent, that's vision.